Today I want to talk to you about mistake number 5 in my mistake series, which is don't buy abroad, it rarely works out. So this leads nicely on, firstly I'll say it's Thursday morning, which is where I talk about past experiences in business, property and investing. And I'm doing a mistake series at the moment because it's proven to be quite popular. People are quite learning from other people's mistakes. So I'm just going through all my mistakes, believe me. It's a massive archive of them in no particular order, but stuff that hopefully leads you to avoiding the similar things that I've done. So, mistake number 5, this leads nicely on from another previous mistake that I talked about is don't buy with a scattergun approach. You know, when you're buying properties all over the place, it creates a huge number of issues. But today, I go one step further. As if scattergun wasn't bad enough, I talked to you about buying abroad. Now, I take myself back to when my first ever educational seminars I was attending with Progressive Property. And Mark Homer used to tell a story, someone I have a lot of respect for, about his experience of buying a chalet in Bulgaria. And they were going to use it for a ski resort and as a skiing holiday. But I'm not sure whether it ever got finished or whether it got built, but ultimately he put a load of money down on a dream that never materialised and ended up costing him a small fortune to get out of that. So I've spoken to a lot of people that have ventured into overseas property, and I think the common denominator between everyone is that they all seem to do it for the wrong reason. They try and combine investment with something that is going to meet their kind of wants, their lifestyle wants. So the most obvious situation is, I want a holiday home, but I'll rent it out for the rest of the year. Well, that's kind of like service accommodation, because obviously you're going to want it at certain points in time, so you can't give someone a really long tenancy agreement and have the risk having to go through. So I'm just going past the car here, so he's taking it out with the trailer. But so the issue there is if you've run service accommodation before, where you're doing short-term lets, you realise how labour intensive it is, and the volume of guests, the turnaround, and having the ability to manage your power team to do that, remotely is quite a challenge. It can be done, and I do it in the UK. But to do it abroad, where it's a different culture, you're dealing with people that have a different way of working. They might have a different level of drive and ambition. At least in the UK, where we're all, we kind of understand one another most of the time. So we keep this way. You go abroad, they can be completely different. A lot of the European countries are very much more laid back than we are in the UK, which is absolutely fine. When it comes to getting something done and you're not there, it's quite challenging, and stuff can go wrong, it can create headaches and stress. So to expect a holiday home to be managed like a well-oiled machine, let alone give you a profit, is probably quite a low chance of that happening. And obviously Mark Homer gave this message out before, as I was dipping my toe in the water in property, some 15 odd years ago. And you'd have thought I'd listened to that story and thought, yes, that's a really good lesson there. Thanks, Mark. I'm not going to make that same mistake. That's what most normal people do. But you'll see there's a common trend with most of my mistakes in that people have told me about them prior to me making them. And if the one lesson I give you is listen to people that have made these mistakes, because I rarely did. I listened, I thought, yeah. And that would be different for me. That was my kind of opinion on it. It never was. Every single time. I've tried it myself, but you know what? I learned from making a mistake myself. Maybe that's just the way I learn. But I'm a bit older and a bit wiser now. And I certainly appreciate other people's experiences and take them as learning experiences a lot more detailed. So I'm just going past some people here. Morning. So it's just passed a group of walkers looking at me very weirdly with my selfie stick. So what did I do? Well, this was back in the really early days when I was buying properties through sourcing companies. A lot of them were terrible properties, with what I know now, but at the time it was three to 5 grand all in, and you get a house that's technically got 25% equity in it. Now, what I later found out was there was a lot of these, the way these deals were structured, they had surveyors and valuers in their pockets at the time, so they were getting valuations that they wanted, which nowadays it's far more difficult to do that, and it's a lot more, there's a lot less corrupt. Be careful what I say, it's corrupt, but there's no way in a million years that some of the houses that I bought should have been valued at the level they did. But they clearly got a RICS valuation because the mortgage was based on the valuation. And but I spoke to people. I knew that meeting the surveyor, wining and dining them, all that type of stuff around envelopes used to happen. And but that's a different story altogether. But so this is back in the 80s I was sourcing. And I was getting, this was single let plus stuff, by the way. So I was averaging, the predicted profit was kind of 200 to 500 pounds a month based on where it was. More often than not, it was kind of the 200 pound bracket, which isn't life-changing money, and it was certainly, at the time, it would have taken kind of 10 to 15 to replace my salary that I was earning at the time. And I didn't have enough money as my starting capital to pay for £3,000 to £5,000 deposits, times 15 to get me out of work. So I thought, I need to make this money work smarter that I had left. So I came across, this was before I learned about HMOs and stuff, what I do in the UK, but I'm actually coming away from now. And I saw this guy, I can't remember his name now, but he was advertising buying property in the US. And in fact, he was flying back and forth doing deals, and they were making tremendous returns, because what they weren't really old HMOs. They were like, in the US, there were a lot of duplexes and triplexes and quadruplexes, whatever you call them, which are basically little blocks of apartments, but there's 2, 3 or 4. And obviously, the price of accommodation in some of the kind of more depressed areas, the housing market over in the States, property prices in general are significantly cheaper than they are in the UK. And a lot of the reason is the construction material, a lot of it's kind of timber frame, so they're a lot cheaper to erect, and a lot of people rent more. So you thought, all the telltale signs there to a really high cash flow producing asset. So I got sucked into flying over to Buffalo, New York, and with my father, and we met this guy's realtor. If you're not familiar with the realtor, that's a estate agent or lettings agent equivalent in the US. And this guy was a really cheesy guy, but he came across very knowledgeable and knew his stuff. And he took us through a couple of days of showing us all these properties, talking about all these amazing figures, talking about his amazing business, how he was going to manage it. And I suppose we didn't really do enough due diligence into him and his business, other than going over and meeting him, which is still a relatively good amount of due diligence. The investments go there, accommodation, and spend a couple of days and then fly back. So, but we thought, both of us, this guy knows what he's doing, he's going to have our backs, he's going to be a good person. He seemed to get UK investors. I think it's probably because he's had loads of them over there through this investment company. So we came home, and then he continued to test deals. We eventually found one that looked like it really stacked, and so we bought it. The issue was that I had to borrow some money from my father to do this, because there was no mortgages for foreign investors at the time. I don't know if there is now. This is going back many years, but we had to pay cash. But the yield, even putting the cash down, I think it was like 35, 40 grand property. So it wasn't too dissimilar to putting a deposit down today, but you're actually buying the whole house. So there was no mortgage or anything on it. So you think it even cash flow even better, and the return on investment was still really high. I can't even remember the exact figures now, but it was by far better than anything I was getting for putting my 3 to 5 grand deposits in sourcing single let properties in the UK. And the added bonus being that there was no mortgage, so that I was concerned, as one less liability I was going to have to content with, and the ROI was higher. So, but as far as I was concerned, that was making my money work better for me. So I then took this house, and first and foremost, lo and behold, from when it was advertised, yeah, it's in great condition. It now needs a full refurbishment. Cosmetic refurbishment, I think, was the term that was used. And we do the 1 unit at a time, and as each unit was used, get it filled. But as each unit was done, we had to put more money up front for the first unit, and then we'll get that tenanted immediately. Several months later, it's not tenanted, but he was asking for money for the next unit. So it was draining us even on a bigger scale. And we were chasing for receipts and stuff, never getting them. And he was saying, yeah, look, it's all right, this is standard, the market's just a bit flat. All this kind of spiel that the realtor was just flying naturally off his tongue, just kept us going. Eventually we started getting people in anyway, but we spent probably a few £1,000s more up to this point, and the costs are still going up. And then the rents are starting to come in as he's sending statements, but we've now accrued this what seemed to be a fabricated debt from all the extra works he'd been doing, but not informing us about. And he was using this rent money to deduct off of the debt. But as he kept on going, the more tenants we were getting in, the bills were just going up. He was saying, cost of move-ins, all this. He was putting all the different fees on it. And I think to this day, we never took any profit from that property. And in the end, I mean, this went on for a good couple of years. Maybe more than that, maybe 3 or 4 years. Going back right to the beginning. We then decided that, enough's enough. We couldn't afford to keep going over there and trying to deal with him, and we didn't really understand the market or the legal system. Morning, well enough. So it was a case of we just need to get shot. So we ended up selling, and who do we use to sell the property? Because we don't know many others. Is the same guy that was managing it. So this dodgy guy was selling it for us, and again, it took months and months of this continuing to run. And eventually we were just, harassing him for updates, and that we were threatening him with legal action, etc. And eventually, lo and behold, he finds a buyer when the threats get a little bit too high. But we made a significant loss in terms of what the sale price was. I think we put 35 grand in, 35 plus. Well, we factor in we probably spent maybe 15 grand running it, so it's probably 50 grand all in. And in the end, I think we just got more than 35k back. Now, bear in mind, we sold it for significantly less than we bought it for, but the only bit of luck that kind of meant we captured our money back in terms of what we paid for the property, excluding the kind of maintenance and the running cost of it, but was the currency exchange. Fortunately, we sold when we were getting $2 to the pound, and as a result, the loss was reduced somewhat by the currency exchange. So so what on paper, and again this links into another previous mistake, is what I said, always do your own due diligence, don't trust other people's spreadsheet information, because this was all based on other people's figures, and I got sucked in and believed it, put a large wad of money in. It could have been a lot more costly. I think it ended up costing us about 15 grand. It could have been significantly more costly had the currency exchange not been in our favour. But I didn't fall into the trap that a lot of overseas investors do in wanting this as a holiday home. If you've ever been to Buffalo, New York, other than the buffalo wings that you can eat that kind of come from there, which are unbelievable, I might add, it's a pretty depressed industrial town. You wouldn't really want to go there for a holiday. It's close to Niagara Falls, which is nice, and the Canadian border and all that type of stuff. Not too far away from New York City and stuff like that, so I suppose I'm saying it to myself, maybe I'll buy another one from what I'm telling myself now. But it wasn't bought for a holiday home purpose, so I did keep the objective of that property very much business and cash flow based. But as I said, I know quite a few people that have invested abroad. Very few of them have ever made any money on it. Now, that's not to say don't do it, because those people that buy it as holiday homes and expect to have a cost and overhead, but they're going to get the enjoyment out of having a holiday home, absolutely fine. But to try and think that you're going to have a holiday home and it's going to be a profitable investment, very, very difficult, and very unlikely that you're going to achieve what you initially set out to achieve. And obviously, you find in this estate agency world, you just find that the amount of salesmanship that goes on in those conversations, and you get some amazing salespeople in the estate agency world. And I came from a sales background. I suppose that's worse because even though I understand all this stuff, I'm so bought into it all, so I get sucked in more than most. Fear of missing out is something that makes me buy all the time. So I constantly spend money on it. But you know what? If I always try and find a positive out of every investment I make, and if it means I won't make that mistake in the future, then it's money well spent as far as I'm concerned. I will get a return on it. On every piece of education and investing that I've done, I'll try and make a return somewhere down the line. So hope you found that useful. So to summarise, message number one, or lesson number one, is don't combine the thought of making an investment and a return with a lifestyle choice like a holiday home. Do one or the other, you've got a better chance of success. Two, when people have done this before, pick their brains, and if you're still adamant you want to go ahead after you pick somebody's brains, you scrutinise numbers, find somebody out there who can help look at your numbers, rather than who's got a vested interest in selling you the property in the first place, to try and get a true reflection of the figures. Do more due diligence on the power team who's managing it. It's so important you get that right, because it's so easy to get wrong, and it's very difficult to correct when you're in another country with a different culture, different language sometimes as well. So bear those things in mind. And yeah, good luck with it, is my honest opinion. I certainly won't be doing any more overseas in the future. I'm now looking at far more stable, low risk stuff. I'm focusing on very much predictable profit, sustainable profit, and anything that I go in, if I'm looking for a quick return, I'll have it offset against the variable costs that go into that. So it won't affect my bottom line in terms of my sustainable, predictable profit, which is what drives me and what keeps me going and what makes me live. So hope that's useful. As always, like, comment, share. Any questions, drop me a line. I'll always respond. Any questions that I can't respond to quickly, I'll do an episode for you and tag you in. That's my request to you. There's no selling on this, it's just value. Trying to help as many people be as successful as they can in their lives, in whatever venture that may be. And as always, stay positive, stay happy, and I will see you on the next episode.